Welcome to The Side Quest, a weekly show on the Grep Beat podcast where we interview interesting people adding to the North Carolina startup community. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, my name is Joe Colby, as always, the Grep Beat godfather, and it is the week of June 9th, 2026-ish. And we have an exciting episode today on The Side Quest. With me this week is Erik Troan of Pendo and many other things. Erik, how's it going?
Hey, good afternoon, Joe. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think we talked a little pre-show, but like I mentioned I had this very strong sun halo effect that's coming in from a skylight in my house here. So hopefully I'm able to kind of muster.
I think you look good. We can see one eyebrow.
Well, I might as well shave the other one off while I'm at it, and kind of go for that look, be really distinctive. So Erik, thanks for joining. I imagine, given your background on the screen and for our podcast listeners, he's seems to be coming from offices. I'm going to guess you're coming from the Pendo offices. Is that fair?
I am working.
Cool. You're a working man. So just to kind of get into it, what's keeping you busy these days?
So I'm the CTO over here at Pendo, and about a year ago now, I gave up all management responsibilities, so I have nobody working for me, which gives me a lot of time to work on customer problems. So I actually get to dive in with customers. I get to work on things that we wouldn't otherwise do. A lot of companies have that list of other shit that you'd really like to do. It's really actually important, but it never quite makes it into the roadmap. And being a founder, I can go through that bucket and I can pick out the things that I find most interesting. And sometimes things come in that we need to save a customer, something has to happen, and I can help out with those too. But it's much more dynamic, much more in the weeds and doing the technical work. And I don't have to manage human beings anymore, which I've done most of my career. So it's a nice change.
Yeah. When I was younger, the idea of progress was like, managing people and overseeing people. And then as you get into it, you're like, yeah, I kind of just want to deal with my own problems and manage myself and just work on interesting technical problems or business problems or
my nest emptied and my kids went away to college and I realized that I was done managing my kids. I want to be done managing anybody else.
So congratulations on being an empty nester. And so I know at least one of your kids you mentioned was or is at University of Chicago. Is that
graduated there 2 years ago.
Oh, wow. So are you, so you're empty nesters that you, in addition to being a CTO at Pendo, where now you don't have to manage people, which is actually sounds really, really appealing. What other things? I mean, what have you filled your time? How is empty nestering? How have you transitioned? And I ask because this fall, after many, many, many years, my wife and I will also be empty nesters. And it's been a long journey. And so could use some tips in terms of like how to.
Well, I think you probably sort of started already, if I remember, Joe. Don't you have is that one in boarding school?
So I have so I have four, right? And so my oldest is she is a software engineer at Bandwidth. My second is in college. My third is Salvador, who's on stage for a blip at Grepapalooza, is going to study computer science, and then my youngest is going to science and math next year. And so
you're empty nesting at the boarding school. So as you know, it's my alma mater. So I had some
yes, yeah. No,
we've graduated into it kind of slowly. We actually had one who is moving back in to take a gap year before med school. Sure. It was a camp counselor science math as we speak, like literally today. It was not much of it. The transition for us was actually pretty easy. It's weird when they come. It's weird where they go. But I run 4, 5, 6 days a week. I scuba dive. I teach scuba diving as a hobby. I like to ski. My wife and I love to travel. So we're overseas probably 6 weeks a year, just seeing different places. Just got back from Japan. Where my wife has family over there. So it's really not a problem spending time. It's finding ways to spend time. As always, you're always busy. You always have more things to do. And if you don't have enough things to do, you should just get a little more imagination and you'll probably find them.
So to pick into some of those, scuba diving. And so way back when I got I don't want to get this wrong, my PADI open water certification. It was probably like 30 some years ago. but I haven't really done anything beyond. Maybe I did a few dives beyond the initial thing. Um, how did you get into that? And do you have go to your instructor? So I assume your
Yeah.
instructor locally.
I
Like
am an
what's
instructor
going on?
locally. Yeah.
Yeah, how's
So my background, we haven't really mentioned it, but I was an early engineer at Red Hat. That's actually where you and I met.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So it's been kind of a journey where we've had these touch points along the way.
That was back in the
When
late
we
90s.
hired the first person at Red Hat who took work off me, because when you do a startup, right, you hire people and you hire people to get more work done. Like the first 10 people don't save you effort. You probably remember that.
Yes.
And so I had left and I turned around and I looked at my girlfriend at the time. I was like, let's take scuba lessons. So that was in the early days of Red Hat. We did scuba lessons. We just we dove a lot before we had kids.
And did you do those locally?
We did. Yeah. Same shop I teach at now. In fact.
Oh, great.
And then as the kids came along, I realized that I wanted to dive with them. I thought I'd become a dive master to be just a safer diver with my family. That's really why I did it. The way my shop does it, they do assistant instructor at the same time as dive master. I didn't really know that when I did the course. It's like, great, you can help teach now. Like, really? Okay. So I did a little bit of that. And then as I enjoyed that a lot, maybe about 7 years ago, I had enough time at Pendo, I could go do an instructor course. And I don't teach a lot. I don't teach a lot of people. Probably 85% of the people I've taught are people I know, or people I've met through Pendo or through a friend of someone I work with, right? But it's 5 to 10 students a year. It's just a great way to spend time and get in the water and meet people and kind of share a passion that I have with them.
Do you primarily do that through kind of the local training center? Do you also have like a go-to place maybe in the Caribbean or somewhere else that you like to go?
I'll give you 3 answers. All my teaching is through a local place. We use a rock quarry out in northern part of this county in order to get people certified. It's really nice to do it without having to travel. If I'm taking a group of new divers, Key Largo, Florida, man. It's 45 feet deep. It's a 15-minute boat ride. You're probably not going to get seasick. I know you're not going to go too deep because there's a lot of sand down there. There's nowhere to go, right? And when you come up away from the boat, it's smooth and I can see where you came up. We can pick you up. It's a very safe, easy, low-risk place to have your first couple dives. But if I'm going on a dive with my family, 7 out of 10 times I go to Grand Cayman. I've been going there since I was in my 20s. It's a wonderful place to dive, but the food's great. The resorts are nice. It's an easy place to get around. You can rent a car or not. It's a foreign country that doesn't feel that foreign. And when I'm there to dive, that's what I want.
Well, I know that's a big dive location. The reason when I learned it was kind of an odd situation is many, many moons ago, before Red Hat, actually, right after college, I was a Peace Corps volunteer and I got sent to these crazy little islands called the Seychelles Islands, which have their own issues, but they're actually wonderful, or especially then were wonderful dive locations. And so toward the end of my 2-year term, I saved up all my money. I took the open water course because I'm like, when else am I going to be over here? And it was so beautiful and so lovely. But what I found out is later in the 90s, there was this huge bleaching in the Indian Ocean because of water temperatures. I thought it was a chemical spill. I think it was really just like the earth being hot. And because when I later went back in 2015, it didn't look, it was beautiful, but not nearly as stunning as it was kind of way back in the day.
The ocean looks suffering, man. There's no question about it.
So we got a few little tidbits. We made reference to the Red Hat thing and the Science Mac thing, but maybe just to kind of tie it together a little bit more. Where are you from? And maybe, little Erik, childhood Erik, walk us through how you were a little guy to getting to where you are now. Via Science Math, via Red Hat.
Sure. My dad was an IBMer. So I lived in upstate New York where all the IBM was back then. I'm pretty old. And he found my brother and I for programming classes. And we didn't know to say yes or no. Like I wasn't really young enough to not do it because I was like 6, right? And it was on a Commodore 64. And then it would use an Apple II or a VIC-20 and all these tiny little machines. And we moved to Raleigh, 1983, the same year Jimmy V won the whole thing. We moved a few months after that. And when we moved down here, my father bought his first IBM PC. He was an IBMer. He bought an IBM PC, 2 floppy drives. I remember him sitting there with a aluminum foil on his wrist, putting in memory chips one at a time. So why I'm like, and I just started playing with it. And it came with basic, so you learn basic, and I just kind of built that up a little bit. Took classes in middle school here in Wake County, but I was mostly self-taught, and I just got the bug for solving problems. If there were not computers 50 years ago, I would have been an electrical or mechanical engineer. Like, I'm an engineer. I like taking things apart. I like putting them together. I like looking at a problem and figuring out how to systematically solve it. And in the mid 80s, as a 12-year-old or whatever I was, that pointed at computers. That's where you went and did that. And we kind of fast forward science, math. Didn't really have a computer science curriculum.
So you went to high school clearly before science and math to one of the local Raleigh high schools. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I can actually see it from my building. It's pretty funny. Like, I hadn't gone very far. And I run past it all the time.
Nice.
So then I went to science and math. Not much of a computer science curriculum in the late 80s, early 90s when I was there. But I did my own. I did independent studies and this and that. And I also learned a lot about what I wanted to do. And what I thought maybe I wanted to do was history. My father looked at me and said, wonderful, you should do history for 4 years. I'll pay for 4 years of college. You're on your own after that. I decided 4 years of computers is better than 4 years of history for getting a job. And I tell a lot of people, it turns out I can buy as many history books to read as I want. No problem. I can go and do that on my own.
Do you have at the time or now, did you have a particular era of type American history, European history, or certain era?
Mostly European World War II era.
Yeah.
I've read Roman, I've read pre-Roman, I've read Byzantine, I've read Asian, I've read Slavic, just all a lot of American, probably more American than anything else living here. But certainly not exclusively. My wife is a huge history buff, and she's much more probably, if she spent, I think she'd say England, 1400 to 1850 would be where she really likes it, but she also reads everything as well. We have hundreds of history books at home, and people come over and they look at her bookshelf and they say, do you actually read all those? Like, oh, no, I've read about 2/3. My wife has read the other 2/3. Like, why would I have books in my house we hadn't read? We're huge.
I was very much a computer science person, but both my parents were history majors. So I can somehow get the dynamic.
I totally had the bug. And now I read actually a lot of like econ and pop econ books. Because of my master's degree. So I came out of NC State. And at the time I had gotten into Linux because of a friend of mine in Chapel Hill who was running a big file server. And he was doing Linux stuff on it. And I mean, this is literally like, it would fit on 2 floppy disks. There was nothing to it. And I took over that archive for him, organizing it, keeping it up. And I started using it and playing with it. I was interning at IBM and then at SAS, using Unix all the time. So like, literally my way of using Unix at home. And I got accepted into a PhD program, full ride. I needed a summer job. And there's literally, I had seen ads for this company in Durham doing Linux in a magazine. So at the time you could ping a machine called fingering it. You finger at redhat.com. Will tell you who was logged in. Right. If you're old enough to remember that.
Yeah.
Guys named Mark logged in. At the time, you could just talk to people on the internet. Like, send him a talk request. Talk Mark at redhat.com. And he answered it. And I said, hey, I'm so-and-so. I run the Sunsite archive over at UNC. I'm looking for a summer job. Are you looking for people? First thing he said was, you type faster than anyone I've ever seen. And it turned out that the co-founder of Red Hat, Bob Young, was in town. They were just setting the company up. And so we had lunch the next day and they brought me in for the summer.
So what year are we talking about here?
1995.
That was back in the day, certainly in terms of Linux terms.
Absolutely. And that's how I got into it. And they hired me for the summer. They suggested I stay for a year. So I put off grad school. And then I went back grad school part-time after that. And
what were you going to do? So I know later on you got
a PhD.
Okay. Very good.
And I was sitting in a grad class over at NC State and I was solving problems for RPM, which is a big part of the Red Hat. So like on the paper, not paying attention. I was like, I can't do this. So I really committed to Red Hat for the ride, and I had a great ride there.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got into there. Very fortunate there in Durham, very fortunate Mark answered the ping. I needed a summer job. I had another offer I didn't like, so I didn't want to do that one. Like, everything worked out. If I'd been a year older or a year younger in school, would never happen.
I tell my, I remember when I met you back in the day at Red Hat, you had really, really long hair. And
then it started falling out. I didn't want to be that guy at the airport. You see him, right? His hair's back and you just see like the huge wood of, like, I didn't want to be him. So I had to cut it off. And then it started turning gray. So I cut it shorter and shorter.
So a number of years ago, my son used to have, when he was like a little boy, like really, really short hair. But since COVID, he basically has grown it out and hasn't really cut it. And he's very technical, very much into that. And so when I see you and I think about what you look like back in the day with the long hair, it gives me hope that at some point in his life, he will get a haircut.
I have long hair, I had a goatee too when we met, right?
Yes. Well, he's also got one of those too. So thank you.
I grew all that out to look older to a large
Okay.
degree, right? Because I was kind of really pretty baby faced then.
Yeah.
And I remember we went to a conference with Bob Young, the founder. I mean, you've met Bob, right? Bob is kind of this goofy guy. He puts on a suit, and the suit never fits right? He just can't like pull it off. Really nice guy, really enthusiastic, high energy. And we were at a trade show, and it was he and I. And everybody would walk in, and they'd look at the guy in the suit, ill-fitting as it was, and they look at the guy in Birkenstocks with a goatee and a ponytail. And they would know exactly who to talk to. They would walk straight up to one of us. They had no hesitation.
That's the technical
one of us
guy.
would have a line, and the other one would have nobody to talk to. People wouldn't switch over because they knew it was the wrong person.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. So Red Hat, you did that for many, many, many years, right? And when did you? Yeah. So what year did you kind of wrap?
I left twice. I left in 2001 to go back to graduate school. Went back to grad school, got a master's degree, and I stayed part-time, and I say they pretended to pay me and I pretended to work.
Sure.
Right. And then I came back and I actually moved from engineering into marketing for a year. And I was the senior director of product marketing for my last 12 months. And that's when the Red Hat Enterprise split happened. And my job, a lot of it was going around to hardware and software partners, aligning them around Red Hat Enterprise is the thing to certify them. And that should be the Linux that you support. And then that was rolling to the market. I left for real.
I think one of the great experiences you had is whatever you walked into in 95 and 96 or whatever, compared to what you left, there might be the same name on the door and you're dealing with the kind of same tech stack, but man, from a cultural perspective, organizational perspective, just so different.
Yeah. I will say the core values of the company cared about open source.
Sure.
They cared about innovation. They cared about the community. So a lot of that stayed. But I left actually because I kind of looked around one day. Like, I am 20 something years old. I have a kid, and it's the only place I've ever worked. It was 5 people when I got here, and it's 700 people now. What's going on? Right. And I just needed to go and see if I could do something on my own. So something that was something else with a luck, with a skill. Like what else is out there?
Well, I think that's extremely valuable because you don't know really what worked or what didn't work if you've only had one experience at one place. And you're very fortunate of doing a great job and starting at a great, amazing place. It was
incredible fortune. I was saying, opportunity knocks, so you got to find a way to answer the door.
So one more like kind of selfish question about Reddit. When you started, because when I started, I was like employee 100. I was like, that was early compared to now, but that's nothing compared to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Can you describe I want to put office environment in quotes for our podcast listeners. What was even like, was it you and Mark Ewing, the
there were 5 of us
sitting in a room? We're like, what was this setup?
2 offices, because Red Hat was formed by 2 companies.
Yes.
There's a company called ACC Bookstore up in Connecticut, which was just shipping literally books and CDs of software.
And that was Bob's thing.
And that was Bob and a woman named Lisa.
Yeah, she was my boss at least. Well, then was my boss in marketing for many years.
Right, Lisa. And then Mark had started Red Hat here to do a Linux distribution. And we always say Mark couldn't sell a heater to an Eskimo, and Bob couldn't make any money without a product that he owned, like the margin on what. So they looked at each other, they decided to get together and merge. So when I merged the company, I joined right when the company was merged. My first check was from ACC Bookstore. My second one was from Red Hat. That was right when that happened. And when I joined the weekend before that, Mark and his wife moved into a different apartment, and I and a guy named Donnie showed up at Mark's old apartment.
Donnie Barnes,
right?
So was this in Durham or?
It was in Durham, out by just past Duke, because Mark's then wife was at Duke, was a Duke student.
I don't think a lot of people realize that Red Hat actually had very Durham, Duke area origins.
It did, but I think a big reason for that is that I would say Mark his heart came out of Carnegie Mellon. He was in Durham because his wife was probably in that apartment for a year. Like not very long.
But they
It
really
was
had
an
no.
apartment. Mark was in one bedroom. Donnie and I shared the living room with 2 desks.
Yeah, so it just happened to be in the area, but really it wasn't Duke connected, but more like a Durham area thing.
Kind of, and we moved to RTP within about 6 or 8 months into an office.
Yeah, neat. So fast forward, right? You had this kind of amazing Red Hat experience. You had a number of startup experiences. I remember knowing a little bit about our path, and that was kind of another open source startup of sorts. Maybe you could talk real quickly about how you got tied in Dependo with Todd and and a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I will say about our path, I don't want to dwell on it, but it was a failure. It didn't go well.
No, I mean, it happens.
So after our path, you need a little bit of time to put myself back together. After a couple of years of some interim work, I was ready to do something new. I was looking at a company up in Virginia, actually, as recruiting mate. And then I got introduced to Todd Olson, who's the CEO here. And we met for coffee one day. He showed me what he was working on. We ended up talking for an hour and a half about how I could help, what was good about his ideas, what I would change about his idea. And really, we just synced. Like, we just got along. And then he said, hey, I'd really like you to meet my co-founders. So I met the 2 other people I was working with. Erik I did a phone call with. He was up in Pennsylvania. Sure. And Rahul Jain, who was in DC. And I had to be up there. We met in Richmond for pizza, and we sat and talked. And after all that, Todd asked me to join as a 4th co-founder and CTO. But I got along with them all, and we synced. And really, Pendo was designed to solve a problem that product people have. Mm-hmm. And I ran the fact that I had run product marketing at Red Hat meant I really did understand that. Product marketing reported to me at Red Hat probably when we knew each other, actually. Probably all product reported to me.
Yeah.
So I had run product like that. I'd had a startup that had product. I'd done some interim things around this problem space of understanding how your customers use what you're building. So I had like this natural affinity towards what he was working on and the understanding of the space. And we just got along, which is so important.
Yeah. I think that is so important. One of the reasons why we do this show is to demystify how, some of these startups that start very, very small become very, very big. And some of those early founder connections that people don't realize how much is based just on fit and relationship. And honestly, like you were talking about Red Hat, I would say being in the right place at the right time, but really just kind of be working on something you're passionate about and then see what happens and how that can lead to some really, think about that Red Hat, the Sunsite at UNC that you were kind of working on back in the day, and how just by being into that, kind of falling to that, helped you kind of fall in the Red Hat. And that really determined, one could argue, the rest of your career, right?
Absolutely.
So a butterfly effect of sorts.
Yeah. And I think the corollary to that, Joe, is I get really sad, I guess. Just internally, I feel it in my heart when I meet a really good technical founder who has ideas and doesn't have a business partner, doesn't have someone who knows the sales side, and you meet him and you talk to him, like, you got to find someone to help.
Yeah.
This is too hard for you to do with just what you know on the technical side and the marketing, but you don't know on the marketing side. And so if you're out there and you're a technical founder, keep trying to meet people, try and find someone who you think you would trust with your baby, right? So you can really partner with, because you need someone who's going to challenge you and help and can take some of that stuff off your plate. Otherwise, if people do startups alone, it's not common. It's really, really hard.
It's super hard. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to spend, as you know, like endless hours on things, and you want to be pretty passionate about it. And there are people that are good at different things. And so if you can complement your passion for digging deep and solving interesting technical problems with someone who likes marketing and thinking about the business aspect of it and putting themselves out there and growth, that is a really powerful combination. And
as you grow, you have to, who internally is going to challenge you as the founder?
Yeah.
Yeah. Co-founders are a really good person to tell you things you don't want to hear.
Yeah, no, it certainly was the case. I built up Bronto Software with Chaz Felix, and at some level we're similar in that we can get along with each other, but we're actually pretty different people. And I think, but we worked really well together. And I think that combination was really a key to our success and why we were able to work together for so long without it blowing up.
Yeah, if you don't like each other, you're not going to make it. And to make sure you find ways to meet people. It's the networking is so important.
Sounds good. Erik, I could go on, and we certainly should go on and on over a beer at some point. But for the sake of keeping these shows somewhat in a package, this has been great. And I really appreciate you taking the time out to kind of share your story. A lot of founders, future founders, listen to these things to kind of get ideas. And part of what I like to do is demystify that it is, there is a networking and personality aspect and a fit. There's all these other things that go into kind of finding the right person that's a co-founder and that might lead to a successful startup. And I think your journey,
that company I introduced you to in Atlanta is the one I was thinking of.
Yes.
She so needs a co-founder.
Well, that is a different thing. So we see that a lot. Anyways, all right. So Erik, really want to thank you for kind of joining this week and look forward to kind of seeing more of you around the triangle.
You're welcome. Thanks, Joe. Hey, I'm ready to start diving again. Let me know.
Okay, I'll let you know. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining. Be sure to follow us through your favorite podcast platform. Now get back to working on your side quest